Welcome to our discussion on longevity benefits of a lean muscle mass, risk of GLP-1 excess muscle loss, and utilization of Fortetropin for muscle health. Our discussion will include a lot more than just this topic. It will include sarcopenia in general and muscle loss with aging, injury and disuse aspects of muscle loss, and also how metabolically active tissue is vitally important for overall health. Our discussion will include the role of Fortetropin and the science behind it, a powerful muscle-preserving food-based supplement, naturally decreasing myostatin, which is important because myostatin has a tendency to increase with aging and also with injuries and whatnot, anabolic resistance as an obstacle to healthy aging process. And that's not anabolic steroids per se, that's the fact that we cannot use our amino acids nearly as well as we get older, all things being equal, and muscle-derived myokines and also exerkines as whole body hope molecules. So when we flex our arm in our youth, we see a big bulging muscle probably, or at least some tone. But as we get older, we're feeling a little bit more what I will term wambly. No, there's not an ICD-10 code for wambly, but sarcopenia does exist. I'm an independent educator for MyosMD, and I look forward to chatting with you today about applications, not only for Fortetropin, but how it fits into an overall protocol for muscle preservation. So there's an Egyptian sphinx, there's a Greek sphinx, there's two different sphinxes, and we often forget that. The Greek sphinx actually protected and guarded the city of Thebes. And there was a riddle associated with the Thebes protector, and it was, which creature has one voice, yet becomes four-footed, two-footed, and then three-footed? So once again, which creature has one voice, yet becomes four-footed, two-footed, and then three-footed? The answer, of course, as you probably already know, humankind. We crawl, we walk on two legs, and sadly enough, as we get older, if we're not careful and proactive, we're going to walk on three legs. So the time is now to look at what is happening with society. Society is getting older. There's going to be another 5 to 7% increase in individuals over the age of 60 by 2050. But in our clinical practices, we're seeing it already. I've been in clinical practice going on 33 years now, and I've seen it not only in myself, but my patients as they're getting older. So we want to see that trend, catch that trend, and prevent that trend. And so whatever we're currently using in our protocols to help our patients, the question is, we still sometimes see it happen. People are getting injured. They're taking falls. It's like, I was just walking along, same walk I do every day. And now all of a sudden I slip and I fell. That just recently happened to a couple of patients of mine, husband and wife, both in their mid-80s. The gentleman walks 10,000 steps a day. The wife walks about 7,500 steps a day. But now what happens is they both have taken tumbles and they have both slowed down because of their tumbles. And so he actually broke his femur and was ended up in a nursing care facility for a short while before going home to his wife. And he now has trouble putting one foot in front of the other. So then the question is, well, how can we get him rehabilitated? He was doing 10,000 steps, remarkable for a gentleman in his 80s. He also made a point of climbing his home stairs up and down 50 times. So he wanted to do 50 flights of stairs a day. But now he's having trouble. So we're putting on Fortetropin in order to help him along with the rest of our protocols that we normally do to give him that edge. Sarcopenia is very real. It happens if we don't pay attention. So the aging process is going to happen, but the question is, do we accept biological age, which is us taking charge, or do we accept the reactive age or the chronological age, where we sit there and wait and try to put our pieces back together? Let's prevent Humpty Dumpty from falling off the wall to start with whenever possible. At the age of 30, people lose 3 to 5% of their muscle mass each decade, with the most significant loss occurring in inactive individuals. So sedentary, but we're no longer Little House on the Prairie times. We actually go ahead and see that we're sitting at our desk, we're sitting in front of the television, we're sitting in our cars, and unless we put ourselves in an active exercise routine, we have to actively be proactive to be exercising these days. It doesn't occur naturally like our ancestors did. And as a result, once we hit around 60, our muscle loss accelerates even faster. So you can see the association here on this slide from gerontology showing the impact of hormonal factors, inflammation, mitochondrial dysfunction, chronic conditions, weight gain, all of these things will feed sarcopenia, and sarcopenia will feed all these things. So we have to break the catch-22. Aging is associated with notable changes in muscle mass, structure, and function. So the risk factors for poor skeletal muscle aging, sarcopenia, telomere attrition, so think resveratrol, think pterostilbene, think other things. Mitochondrial dysfunction, once again, we have to take care of our mitochondria. There are blast furnaces, there are energizer bunny batteries of our cells. Physical inactivity, welcome to the sedentarism of today's world. Hormonal changes, welcome to aging. And stress and low-grade systemic inflammation also causes the problem, along with a low-protein diet, and or not assimilating a protein that we're eating as a result of either taking acid blockers, not sitting down and actually creating a gastrocephalic reflex of I'm thinking of food, I smell food, like the restaurants do in fast food restaurants particularly, pump up the smell, and then we start salivating. We need to make time to eat the food with gratitude to support our body and digest these substances. But the low protein diet, along with anabolic resistance, contributes to accelerate aging process. It's also been stated that sarcopenia can be regarded as a geriatric syndrome or the geriatric syndrome. And you can see the arm of the 25-year-old versus the 75-year-old. It's like, wow, we don't want that to happen. We've worked too hard when we're young to maintain that muscle mass, and now we need to spend the next 50 years protecting that. So the concept of use or lose is very true when it comes to muscle and muscle mass. Disuse syndrome is very broad, and it includes reduced physical activity, the sedentarism, to the fact that, okay, I got injured and I'm laid up, I broke my leg, I broke my arm, or most recently I've been dealing with a rotator cuff. So my right arm has literally physically gotten weaker, and I've noticed it because I had trouble even opening up the remote to my garage on the window of my car, my rear view mirror. That's like, okay, can I get my arm up there? And so that's how much pain I was in. So of course I put myself on Fortetropin to help with that, along with the other therapies I'm already using for myself and my patients. The disuse, immobilization, bed rest, and all these things contribute. So we have a patient doing really, really well, but they're gaining some weight and they're becoming inactive, but then they get injured. And they get injured, and now you're forced to disuse and be immobilized to allow the healing process to occur. We're in a catch-22. Or let's say we get really, really sick and we're hospitalized, or we have a procedure done. Then all of a sudden we're having to rehabilitate ourselves. By the moment we start not moving, a body in motion stays in motion, a body at rest stays at rest. Now we're having to rehabilitate ourselves. And when it comes to the aspect of being hospitalized or having an illness, it's called euthyroid 6 syndrome or non-thyroidal illness syndrome. Changes in thyroid function tests, of course, will occur in a lot of those individuals. In fact, how many? 75% of hospitalized patients end up with this problem where their thyroid levels get all out of balance. Seen a patient with severe critical illness, deprivation of calories, and following major surgeries or injuries. But the deprivation of calories, I have underlined. So now if I go on a very strict diet and I'm having minimal number of calories, maybe my diet wasn't that good to start with, so maybe the food quality wasn't there, and now all of a sudden we have this challenge with, now I'm eating less of not only good quality food, I'm just eating less in general, less calories, but less macro and micronutrients. It's going to actually potentially contribute to a euthyroid 6 syndrome. And the most common hormone pattern in euthyroid 6 syndrome is a low total T3 and free T3 with a low to normal T4 and TSH. So if you're just doing the regular TSH reflex to T4 panel, you're going to miss the euthyroid 6 syndrome, because I want to measure total and free thyroid and T3 thyroid in particular, along with reverse T3. Because reverse is that antithesis, the 0x metabolic effect, and T3 is 3 to 5x, and T4 is 1x in terms of metabolic impact. So the thyroid hormone T3 activates thermogenesis by uncoupling electron transfer chain from ATP synthesis and brown fat and the mitochondria. So brown fat, of course, is welcome to the world of thermogenesis. The white fat, well, we want to, of course, brown our white fat in order to create metabolic tissues. But if our thyroid is out of whack, or if we're on a strict diet that's actually calorie deficit, our body goes into save the bacon mode, and therefore it's trying to preserve us. So we go into hibernation calorie restrictive. I'm not going to burn my calories. And that's why a lot of people get stuck with, I lost X amount of weight and now I've kind of plateaued because of that T3 reverse. But now the sad part is, because of this euthyroid 6 syndrome, our muscle cells, which are going to need to be there after we recover from an illness or injury or from a calorie deficit diet, aren't going to be there because we lost a disproportional amount of lean body mass. When we look at T3 and muscle function, T3 enhances the oxidative capacity by increasing mitochondrial density and function, and improves endurance and energy efficiency. It also is why patients with low thyroid often have fatigue, muscle weakness, reduced stamina, and overall decreased energy. They say, I eat like a bird, but I'm gaining weight. And maybe their bowels are slow, maybe their detoxification pathways are slow. And this is of no surprise, because look at what T3 is doing on the right-hand bottom corner. It's actually affecting the mitochondrial DNA. Once again, how our bodies are interwoven together. Once again, we need those mitochondria to be working. And as a result, if they're not working and the T3 becomes problematic because we're on a calorie restrictive diet or injured, we're going to, of course, end up with a catch-22 of being stuck. So success does not just equate on the scale. It's about sustainability, and we don't want to lose weight to the consequence of our health. We have fat-soluble toxins in our fat tissues. So now all of a sudden we're going on a calorie restrictive diet and we're not nourishing our body. Not only do our muscles suffer and we lose muscle mass, active metabolic tissue, we're also mobilizing toxins and drugs and other things stored in our tissues over the years. And the question is, do we have the ability to detoxify those? Are we supporting our patients with detoxification protocols? And if not, those forever drugs, which of course have a lot of toxic capacities, including triggering cancers and hormonal disease states, are going to become problematic. So once again, we know in functional medicine what we need to do, but I have just down the road a sandwich board and it says, come get your skinny shot. Like, okay, is there a functional medicine provider there that's actually going to give a comprehensive diet, lifestyle, exercise, and detox program for those individuals? Or are they just, once again, looking for the quick fix, and nothing in life is quick, at least that are good? Today's journey will include GLP-1 and bariatric surgeries and how rapid weight loss can lead to tremendous muscle loss. Fortetropin lowering myostatin, enhancing protein synthesis. Dialing back the impact of anabolic resistance. And lastly, skeletal muscle and how it has a systemic influence throughout our entirety of our body. Healthier muscles, stronger muscles, all things being equal, greater longevity, decreased morbidity, and overall decreased mortality. Yes, you can still get ran over by a car when you have lots of muscle. Yes, an asteroid can fall from the sky. But once again, you're trying to balance things out to the best of your ability. So when it comes to GLP-1 and bariatric surgeries, and back in the day, a decade ago, was the HCG diet. And once again, rapid weight loss equals muscle loss and disproportional. So whenever we lose weight, we're going to lose muscle. But when we lose a lot of weight really quickly, we're increasing the risk of that muscle loss. And this leaves us with less metabolic tissue in the long run. So maintaining muscle while losing fat is critical to successful, sustained weight loss efforts. Because once again, sustained is it. We're not looking to yo-yo. We're looking to sustain it. Great, I want to lose weight, and losing weight might help with XYZ risk factors for disease, or my aches and pains, or the way I look in the mirror, whatever your motivation is. But the GLP-1 agonist drugs and bariatric surgery lead to both fat loss and accelerated muscle loss. But once again, bariatric surgery, GLP-1, other aggressive weight loss programs, not just picking on one category here. Muscle is involved in weight loss in several different ways. Active metabolic tissue, muscle burns more calories at rest. So great, you work out, you're getting more tone, more buff. Well, that's going to work for you while you sleep even. Preservation of muscle leads to a higher basal metabolic rate. So great, I'm going to have a higher metabolic rate. Plus the myokines and exerkines we're going to talk about, vitally important, and helps maintain insulin sensitivity and blood sugar. Once again, welcome to obesity, welcome to insulin resistance and diabetes, as well as, of course, metabolic syndrome. So when we all go on a diet, as you can see the picture on the right-hand upper corner there, we're seeing that sarcopenia affects the elderly, but a diet can do the same thing. You're on a crazy diet, and all of a sudden we're going to potentially not be nourishing our body. We're literally starving ourselves. And that's important to remember. Even if you're taking a drug, you're starving yourself to a calorie deficit, and that's a problem. So Dr. Kumar, which was interviewed on Healthlines, and I'm quoting here, sarcopenia affects the elderly population, typically is associated with aging. However, rapidly losing weight with GLP-1s, and she lists a couple of them here, without the proper diet and exercise can also lead to sarcopenia, or sometimes referred to as skinny fat, at any age, negatively affecting a person's quality of life by reducing their stamina and ability to perform daily activities such as easily walking upstairs. And once again, that's a quote from her, and she's an endocrinologist in New York City. Of course, it seems evident. Less calories, and now imagine if you're less calories and you don't have a good diet, that's very, very bad. But then we don't have enough protein, and we don't have enough protein, we don't have enough exercise, fertile ground for muscle loss, micro and macronutrient insufficiencies. We're not surprised by that, but once again, we have to support our patients because all of us like something easy. We all have enough struggles in our world. They're like, okay, well, I'm going to go on this because everybody else is doing it. Plus, it's a really, really popular fad. Well, reduced skeletal muscle and function is associated with chronic disease, poor quality of lifestyle, physical disability, increased risk of fractures, and risk of frailty. It's a vicious catch-22. But now imagine a person successful to the point of the little diagram below. Well, that heavier individual was bearing more weight bearing. The thinner person is not bearing as much weight. And assuming she's not running, as this picture indicates, and she's still walking, she's doing less weight-bearing exercise. Well, we have to factor that in to make sure that she's still having the bone density, stimulating the osteoblast, dealing with the osteoclast activity, and all these other aspects. So lean could be good, assuming she's detoxified along the way and incorporated her new lean body considerations into the picture. So muscle health influences a whole biochemical cascade, and this shows Alzheimer's disease, how it impacts sarcopenia, and how both of those impact neuroinflammation, neurocognitive function. The gut-brain connection is very, very integral, and the muscle-brain aspect of things is very integral. So as our muscle mass decreases and our muscle activity decreases, our myokines change. As myokines are hormonal, they're made in the muscle, but they have systemic effect. And we're in a really, really ripple effect that is occurring here, and we need to change that. And once again, maintaining your muscles vital, regardless of whether it's weight loss, the aging process, injury, or whatnot. So the other thing is myostatin levels are rising with the course of time, so or with injuries. So we want to reduce myostatin, and by doing that, we can increase irisin. And you can see irisin has an ability to help with the browning of fat, decrease neurocognitive disease, helps with glyconeogenesis, glucose uptake, and helps with the inflammatory process. So we want to look at lowering the myostatin, which occurs otherwise with age, is going to rise. We want to improve irisin and other myokines, but also we want to go ahead and look at how myostatin inhibits muscle growth. So if we do nothing and our myostatin levels continue to grow and climb over the period of time, guess what? We're going to get sarcopenia as an outcome of that unless we're doing something dramatically ahead of it. They looked at mice that had deletion of myostatin, and this led to secretion of irisin and the browning of white fat. The browning of white fat therefore allows for the burning of that fat and come to weight loss and warmth and mitochondrial function. So this is the trigger alert only for those that love biochemical pathways. So you're going to say, well, that's not much of a biochemical pathway, and that doesn't scare me. But indeed, it's very, very simple. But you see here, sarcopenic obesity, like, okay, well, we're sarcopenic obesity. So low muscle mass and we're fat and we don't have the muscle activity. Well, that's going to impact a whole milieu of things. And so, well, how do we deal with that? Well, I did say trigger alert. Here's the bigger biochemical pathway. And look at how beautiful this is. Imagine showing this to one of our patients, showing this is why we're doing the things we're doing. You probably already know vitamin D is critical for mitochondrial function. Well, of course, we know anabolic hormones like testosterone, DHEA, also very important for male and female alike. And we've seen some of these obesity side of things, that white adipose tissue and browning and all these things, that what happens when you have obesity and that catch-22. So you can see why people are tempted for rapid weight loss, but they don't realize, because they're not on the educated healthcare provider side of things, what the consequence is. So brown adipocytes. Brown fat cells are involved in thermogenesis, and they actually involve mitochondria and burning of calories. The browning process of making white fat into brown fat can be done through a cold plunge. It can be going outside and being inappropriately dressed or modestly dressed for the coldness, and you shiver, and that causes thermogenesis. But things like irisin and norepinephrine can also play a role. And the thermogenesis, once transformed, beige or brown adipocytes are burnt for energy. So once again, there's a process here that if done methodically, even with one of those weight loss programs that we were just discussing, we're going to actually see an additive, safer approach to the weight loss and sustained weight loss. Obesity and weight loss. The browning of white fat may promote weight loss by increasing body's ability to burn the calories. So once again, we want to take a methodical approach. We are already, as functional medicine providers, trying to do that, but educating our patients why it's so important to do that extra little step is very, very inspirational, motivational, and liberating. So let's talk about Fortetropin. It lowers myostatin and enhances protein synthesis. Fortetropin is an all-natural bioactive compound derived from raw, fertile chicken eggs. So they're fertilized and they're raw. What do we eat? We eat, of course, cooked eggs. We were told uncooked eggs are not healthy for us because of salmonella and all these other things. Well, these are processed. It's a patented process, and it's raw, and they're fertile chicken egg yolks. And it's been shown to increase muscle growth, enhance muscle protein synthesis, and lower circulating myostatin levels. Myostatin is an important therapeutic target due to its vital involvement in several disorders, including diabetes and obesity. Remembering, with aging, myostatin levels are going up, but Fortetropin has been shown to dampen myostatin, and therefore help with muscles, helps with overall metabolic processes as well. And various clinical trials using myostatin neutralizing compounds or antibodies have been shown to improve muscle homeostasis. Well, you can use something that's in the pharma world, or you can use something that's in the food-based world, such as Fortetropin. Myostatin works as a negative regulator of muscle growth. And so once again, it's rising with time, it's rising with injury. So what we want to do is we want to dampen that. And Fortetropin has been shown in many clinical studies to do that. And actually a quotable quote from Dr. Stuart Phillips, professor of kinesiology and Canada Research Chair, said, "Very few nutritional supplements have been studied as rigorously as Fortetropin has been studied in humans and preclinical studies. A safe product that can prevent increases in serum myostatin has exciting potential, particularly in an aging person's rehab and recovery from injury," unquote. So once again, lots of studies and leaders around the world were saying this is a remarkable product. And once again, I'm merely an independent educator, but as a clinician, you can tell I'm excited. Myostatin protein levels are increased in skeletal muscle and plasma from obese, insulin-resistant individuals. Myostatin levels are rising. So we got an obese patient, an insulin-resistant patient, diabetic patient. Fortetropin could be a good fit. Whereas the decrease in myostatin improves insulin sensitivity and reduces obesity. Well, what decreases myostatin? Fortetropin has been shown to do such. So the clinical studies are pervasive and they're growing, and we see Fortetropin with the multiple articles, all available, by the way, on myosmd.com. And I've highlighted them because that's what I like to do, just like in college days and grad school. I like to highlight the poignant points in an article, but it's like, wow, this is interesting. This is great stuff. And there's a research there backing it up. So let's look at some of that research. Well, first off, remember, myostatin reduces protein synthesis and rises with age. So all things being equal, this is going to happen. So we better do something about it. So breaking the dysfunctional myostatin cycle is important. In a study of younger, middle-aged, and older men and women, serum myostatin levels increase with age, as we've talked about. The study also indicated that myostatin levels were the highest in physically frail older women, and that the higher the skeletal muscle mass, the lower the myostatin. So, okay, I'm frail, I got low muscle mass, my myostatin levels are higher, and I want to change that, so I need to increase my muscle mass. So how do I break myself out of that cycle? Well, I need to lower my myostatin levels. So once again, our Fortetropin can come in along with the rest of our protocols. Research reported in the Journal of Gerontology, and I quote, myostatin inhibition provides a promising means to attenuate or reverse skeletal muscle loss in the context of sarcopenia as well as cachexia, disease-associated muscle loss, and to enhance skeletal muscle regeneration in the context of congenital disease, muscular dystrophies, which I'm using it in a patient with Duchenne's right now, and also injury. So the effects of Fortetropin supplementation on body composition. In a study of 37 resistance-trained college athletes, lean body mass was significantly increased in patients given Fortetropin. Now you think athletic performance, like great, I want to nourish the body. Once again, this is a fertile egg yolk product that's not exposed to heat, and it's interesting. Like, okay, well, how about for athletic performance? Could this be beneficial? And the answer is yes. And so they looked at 19.8 grams versus 6.6 grams. Both had improvement in lean body mass, but the 19.8 gram dosing had a greater improvement. And we see both the 6.6 and 19.8 grams group experience significant increases in muscle thickness, and Fortetropin decreased markers of protein breakdown. Then we look at the Berkeley study, the human study that looked at for 21 days supplementation of muscle protein synthesis in older adults. 21 days, very finite period of time. Did the needle move? And the answer is yes, it did. The randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled study of 20 individuals that the average muscle protein synthesis rate in the Fortetropin group was 18% higher compared than placebo. Did they change their diet? No. Did they change their exercise? No. What did they change? They took Fortetropin. The study indicated that Fortetropin has the potential for managing age-related muscle loss and sarcopenia in older individuals. We're all getting older. Many of us are sedentary. I can tell you, if I had to live it over again, I would have been much more active and not sat in front of my desk for as many hours as I have without being more active. I would have relived it with a greater physical activity. I would have been more proactive than now where I'm reactive. According to the lead researcher in the study, stimulating muscle protein synthesis in elderly patients could potentially result in increased muscle mass and better outcomes for those with sarcopenia. Once again, it's known as a Berkeley study because the lead professor has affiliations with Berkeley. They've also looked at it for our fur babies. There actually has been a study with cats with kidney issues. There's also a study here with dogs. And they had tibial plateau leveling osteotomy surgeries, and they were given Fortetropin. And those given Fortetropin experienced no change in myostatin. Those dogs that were treated with placebo had an increase in myostatin over the 8 weeks. So, okay, injury surgically and recovery, myostatin levels are rising. But that's counterintuitive. That's going to mean my muscle mass is going to deteriorate even quicker, all things being equal, whereas there's no reflex increase in myostatin in the dogs that were given the Fortetropin. Dogs given the Fortetropin also experienced no change in thigh circumference, while the placebo group had a reduction. So they're injured, they're recovering, and now they're weaker, which will make their recovery even that much harder. Now put that onto a human with a hip replacement or a shoulder injury or whatever, and you can say, well, you can see some applications here extrapolating potentially from the dog to humankind. Strategies to decrease myostatin. Of course, Fortetropin. You can try to go to the pharma side of things with antibodies, peptides, and small proteins, but Fortetropin is a food. Exercise, resistance training, very important. Dietary interventions, leucine, of course, one of those branched-chain amino acids, has been shown to be somewhat helpful. But once again, you want to have that whole body approach. So I incorporate this into my good protein intake, good digestion, good exercise, good sleep routine. And Fortetropin is just a very nice modular tool. So myostatin levels increase with aging. And so as a result, what do we want to do? We want to kind of mitigate that. Let's control that risk factor. And let's control it with a food-based product. And so looking at the elevation of myostatin, along with these changes in other things like leptin and adiponectin and resistin and the changes in interleukin 6 and interleukin 10, we're seeing a change of the environment, the milieu. There's so many moving parts in our biochemistry. Controlling one thing that can control so many other things just makes good, prudent sense. And so when you look at these changes, we're also seeing that in the older population here on the right-hand side, sarcopenia, of course, leads to a decreased mass. And remembering what Dr. Kumar said on the Healthline interview, Well, you can get sarcopenia from being on a really, really strict diet that's not balanced with resistance training and, of course, eating enough protein. But then you also see with the aging process, the number of mitochondria in our muscle tissues change. And then we also see increased mitochondrial DNA changes, morphological changes, and impaired biogenesis. And that impaired biogenesis is also going to accelerate because now we don't have as many Energizer Bunny batteries. That's what I call my mitochondria. And so, because after all, we're all translating our science into English for our patients and often for our colleagues as well, because we're all human beings after all. We all like to have a simple analogy or once again, a paradigm that makes good sense. So, myostatin, snapshot of it, 86 calories per scoop. And once again, about a scoop and a half. My patient with Duchenne's was actually doing a scoop and a half 3 times a day. And he had tremendous gains in muscle mass and weight in general because he was actually on the fading side of things. Fortetropin has been clinically shown to lower the levels of circulating myostatin and increase fractional rate of protein synthesis in men and women ages 60 to 75. But we also saw in another study the resistance training as well in athletes. So it's not limited just to old individuals, people on weight loss programs, people that are injured, for all of us with the aging process. It is a therapeutic food consideration. So what is Fortetropin? Once again, it is fertilized raw egg extract with patents, 6 successful clinical trials. The Berkeley study I mentioned and Dr. Evans found the remarkable difference of an 18% increase in protein synthesis versus placebo. And that was a landmark study which has led to multiple international lectures for Dr. Evans because it's like, wow, food is our best medicine. I kind of heard that from me. 400 BCE, Hippocrates, anybody? And dialing back the impact of anabolic resistance. Anabolic resistance is another reality. And so anabolic resistance, in particular, when we can't take our amino acids and make them anabolic. Anabolic, of course, building. Catabolic is breaking down. Think of steroids like prednisone, excess cortisone produced by our body. Those are catabolic processes. We're wanting to build the body, but we definitely don't want anabolic resistance. And so person on kidney failure, of course, they have protein issues. Obesity, they have more anabolic resistance. Sedentary behavior, welcome to most of the world these days. The aging process, you can say, well, they're a little bit below. They're in the blue low. But those are actually individuals that have been conditioned. Deconditioned older people fall into the top category, and the physically fit are the ones that have the least anabolic resistance. When we look at controlling myostatin levels and hormone activity, yes, there is an anabolic aspect of things we have to consider as clinicians. There is decreased testosterone in men and women as we get older. There's decrease of growth hormone levels and IGF-1 and ghrelin and insulin sensitivity, hence insulin resistance. And we all know that type 3 diabetes is what? It's Alzheimer's disease. Type in type 3 diabetes into a PubMed search and diabetes is going to pop up, but it's Alzheimer's disease. Increased cortisol levels with stress, decreased DHEA, which is a building block for our testosterone. And we're seeing all these changes. And of course, lower levels of estrogens as well. And as a result, we're seeing these changes occur. But once again, we have to address the hormonal side of things. But once again, we have to control the myostatin levels. So anabolic resistance, a significant aging hurdle. Once again, great dietary amino acid intake, good digestion, all vitally important. So from a skeletal muscle perspective and homeostasis, you can see right above the diagram of the striated muscle, you see the word myostatin, brain-derived neurotrophic factors. You see also lots of interleukin-6, which we used to think was just a bad thing, but just the right amount, like Goldilocks. You need to have the right amount of interleukin-6, but not too much. And once again, muscle is an endocrine organ. We never thought of that. In '92, when I graduated, we thought muscle was muscle. And it had some prime functions. We knew the importance of muscle, but now we know it actually produces hormones that impact the entirety of our body with rare exception. And so whether it be the muscle-brain connection, muscle-liver connection, muscle-gut connection, onwards, of course, we're going to see that we have to take care of this endocrine organ, which is also thermogenic, and of course, very important for overall morbidity and longevity considerations. So they did a study in 1953 that really kind of validated what Hippocrates predicted. And he said, guided by his theory of the balanced humors, he advocated that absolutely everyone, young or old, needs exercise, but not too much. So let's look at the 1953 study. reported in Lancet. They looked at drivers and conductors. Drivers sat. That's what drivers do. Conductors walked around taking people's tickets. The drivers had more problems with cardiovascular disease and coronary artery problems and acute coronary syndromes than the people that actually exercise for a living by walking, getting our steps in, 5,000, 10,000 steps a day. Once again, 1953 should be all over the place. This study is actually showing that, once again, exercise is important, validating what Hippocrates 400 BCE said. So like he said, food is your best medicine. Well, Fortetropin's a food. Exercise, important, Hippocrates. And once again, moderation is the key in all aspects of things. So sitting too long, not good. So when we're looking at putting our muscles to work, we can see the skeletal muscle, we can see ATP production, we know the electron transport chain, and we know about our citric acid cycle. We know about all these things. We know how important they are for our overall health. We need to be clever on how we actually stimulate our mitochondria and our muscles. This gentleman on this picture here did it beautifully. Not only is he barefoot, so he's grounded to the earth. Grounding is very important. Dr. Stephen Sinatra spoke of that, the integrative cardiologist of grounding. He called it earthing. He's got the cold plunge happening without having to bring a whole lot of ice to it or a couple $1,000 cold plunge machine. And looks like he's having a lot of fun. I think this guy's actually got it dialed in. So he's using the muscle between his ears in this case, as well as the muscles throughout his body while being grounded. Good for him. And only if we could actually embellish and capture and embrace what he has done. Wow. So exercise regulates myokines. You see all the various kinds of exercises, and it actually impacts the brain. Muscle-brain connection. We know muscle-gut. We know mitochondria, gut-brain, but muscle-brain. Once again, we isolate our thinking, not as functional medicine providers, but as citizens of the world of, okay, I'm going to take care of my brain. No, I'm going to take care of my muscle. I'm going to take care of my gut. No, this all comes together, and we have to take care of our mitochondria, which of course fuels our muscle and our gut and our brain. So exerkines, which are myokines, but I love the term exerkines because it really speaks to exercise, discovered in 2000 that muscle contractions releases interleukin-6. Well, you said they get interleukin-6. Well, that's an inflammatory marker, and I'm going to see that more elevated in my rheumatoid arthritis patients, which I did. But we want to go ahead and support these exerkines, which have the ability to help with vascular disease, type 2 diabetes, obesity, and overall facilitate healthy aging. In the peer-reviewed literature, exercise-induced exerkines have a full body ripple effect. As you can see here, heart cardiokines, the muscle myokines, the hepatocytes, the adipokines from white adipose tissue, cytokines from brown adipose tissue, and of course our neurons. All of these things working in concert, but once again, putting our muscles to work. Once again, myokines are rising. That's good. Now, myostatins rising will lower our myokines. That's bad. So aging process, injuries, all these things that elevate our myostatin can rob us of some of these other benefits. So once again, this is why we want to build good, strong skeletal muscle. So is it inevitable or preventable that age-related muscle anabolic resistance and aging in general? Well, there's biological age, there's chronological age. We hold up our little license and say, okay, this is how old you are when we get carded. And right now in Oregon, you get carded to get cold medicine. You get carded to get a lottery ticket. So they see how old you are. But biologically, you want to be younger than your chronological age. So what can we do? Well, we know that with the body getting older, it can lead to muscle loss. Reduced activity in nerve cells can do this. The andropause, menopause, elevated cortisol, thyroid dysfunction, decreased growth hormone can do this. Inflammation can do this. Anabolic resistance. Once again, not being able to assimilate our proteins. And once again, there's certain drugs that poison our mitochondria, certain drugs such as H2 antagonists and proton pump inhibitors that also block our ability to absorb proteins, or we have gut dysfunction as a problem. Disuse from either injury, recovery from surgery, or an illness, sedentary lifestyle, all are contributory to muscle atrophy. Poor nutritional status, GI problems, rapid weight loss. I'm on a diet. Most people's diets aren't that good to start with. Now I'm eating less of that diet. And guess what? I end up with, of course, micro and macronutrient deficits. I'm ending up with, of course, muscle loss. And that's a problem. So we need to be proactive. And that's, of course, vitally important. And look at a couple here. They're exercising. Good for them. Now, we don't exercise. Of course, there's a consequence. Here's a small sampling of some of the patients I have on Fortetropin. 63-year-old with severe osteoporosis and sarcopenia had fallen off a ladder, injured herself a couple of years ago. It accelerated her osteoporosis further and her sarcopenia. She's underweight, so she's not bearing a whole lot of weight. So that's a problem. So perfect candidate for Fortetropin. 55-year-old plays soccer with his 5 kids. So he's really quite competitive and in great shape, great BMI, and very, very healthy overall. Well, he's going to go now in for surgery for his knee, and he's going to have a disuse syndrome because he's going to be laid up from the surgical and giving time for things to repair. And now we're going to rehabilitate him. So I put him on Fortetropin ahead of the surgery and for a minimum of 6 months after. At his age and how active he is, I might actually have him on a long term. That's one of my goals for him. 86-year-old, I have a couple, male and female. This was the male. He broke his femur. He was up in a nursing care facility. The guy did 10,000 steps a day. Now he has trouble just putting one foot in front of the other. And so what we do is we have him on Fortetropin along with an overall wellness protocol. Once again, this is a modular thing. Fortetropin fits into all of our protocols. And we're going to actually have him continue to start rehabilitating. I'm giving him that extra tool because once again, he's 86. Luckily, he's conditioned, so his myostatin levels aren't as high as if he was deconditioned. But now because of his injury, he is deconditioned to a degree. So we're going to lower his myostatin levels, improve his irisin levels, all things going well, and we're going to see an improvement. 35-year-old male, history of yo-yo dieting, lost 40 pounds. He's a healthcare provider. He was on GLP-1. He got it all back. And what he used to be really active, and in his line of work, he's pretty active, but he knows weakness and lack of conditioning post the GLP-1. Now, we're not picking on GLP-1 per se. We're looking at rapid weight loss and then minimal dietary intake from a caloric, micro and macronutrient perspective. And in addition, most recently, I diagnosed him with sleep apnea. And so it's like, okay, great. Well, I put him on Fortetropin because I want him to regain the muscle and put himself ahead of the curve, so to speak. And then we had the 13-year-old Duchenne's patient. I had him actually use the Fortetropin more than just once a day. And he's actually gained some 14, 15 pounds of muscle. And he was already wheelchair bound. And so our goal is to get him stronger and fight to the best of his ability the trend of that comes along with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. But he could not gain weight until he started on Fortetropin. He started loading on muscle because he was atrophied. We know this with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. This is part of my program for my optimized muscle retention with optimized weight loss and optimized weight in general. Once again, I want to maintain the lean body mass, and if a patient is wanting to lose fat, we're going to support them, including detoxification pathways. But Fortetropin helps by mitigating the anabolic resistance by inhibiting myostatin and also supports healthy mTOR levels with skeletal muscle and exercise. Consume sufficient calories is important to prevent the T3 to going towards reverse T3, which is going to slow down metabolism and muscle activity and also our metabolism in general. Sufficient protein and essential amino acid intake, of course, makes sense. Mitochondrial support, NAD support like nicotinamide riboside, CoQ10, PQQ, and resveratrol. Exercise, got to get our steps in, got to get our resistance training in. Of course, detoxification, we don't want it to die dieting. I know that's a very dramatic saying, but if we don't get rid of our toxins appropriately, we're mobilizing toxins on top of our stress and our other challenges, and as a result, we have to support detox. So once again, phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3. And some of the medications being used right now slow down the bowels tremendously. So you're not going to get out what I term the muddy water from the GI tract. We're going to reabsorb. We're going to have drier stools, slower bowel movements. And we also make sure our phase 3 urination and also sweating occur. And we all want to ensure good quality sleep and quantity because we have to restore the body. Plus, losing weight is actually stressful to the body. We don't think of that. We're doing a good thing. But once again, it's work. And of course, we always like to do testing, look at their A1Cs before and after, see where their cortisol levels are, DHEA, building block, of course, for testosterone as well as estrogens. Make sure our thyroid function, including free T3 and reverse T3, are being sustained throughout the process. And of course, optimizing our growth hormone. So Fortetropin, a powerful addition to our clinical toolbox. It's modular. It fits into whatever we're currently doing, whether we're helping athletes, helping injured individuals, helping people with weight loss, helping individuals with a healthy aging process. It's been shown to increase muscle growth, enhance muscle protein synthesis, and lower circulating levels of myostatin that otherwise are rising with both injury as well as aging. So I want to thank you for attending. I believe this is a very powerful food-based supplement. And if you have any questions, please contact us, and I'll be more than glad to field questions as well. Thank you, be well, and may we all help our patients live a happier, healthier life. Take care.